We're now coming to the final section of the speech now. Um, at this point, Martin Luther King is just going over some highlights that he wanted the audience to walk away with. Following this, we'll actually go back into the publication. What would Martin Luther King do to sort of highlight some things that I would like the readers to take away or the listeners to take away that we can use in our era, in our time, to actually take us to the next level. So let's continue with the speech, Birth of a New Nation. Oh, my friends, our aim must not be to defeat Mr. Englehart, not to defeat Mr. Sellers and Mr. Gale and Mr. Parks. Our aim must be to defeat the evil that's in them, and our aim must be to win the friendship of Mr. Gale, Mr. Sellers, and Mr. Englehart. We must come to the point of seeing that our ultimate aim is to love, live with all men as brothers and sisters under God, and not be their enemies or anything that goes with that type of relationship. And this is the one thing that Ghana teaches us, that you can break loose from evil through nonviolence, through a lack of bitterness. And Nkrumah says in his book, when I came out of prison, I was not bitter toward Britain. I came out merely with a determination to free my people from colonialism and imperialism that had been inflicted upon them by the British. But I came out with no bitterness. And because of that, the world will be a better place in which to live. There's if there's anything that Ghana reminds us, I'm coming to the conclusion now. Ghana reminds us that freedom never comes on a silver platter. It's never easy. Ghana reminds us that whenever you break out of Egypt, you better get ready for stiff backs. You better get ready for some homes to be bombed. You better get ready for some churches to be bombed. You better get ready for a lot of nasty things to be said about you because you getting out of Egypt, and whenever you break loose from Egypt, the initial response of the Egyptian is bitterness. It never comes with ease. It comes only through the hardness and persistence of life. God reminds us of that. You better get ready to go to prison. When I looked out and I saw the Prime Minister there with his prison cap on that night, that reminded me of the fact that freedom never comes easy. It comes through hard labor and it comes through toil. It comes through hours of despair and disappointment. And that's the way that it goes. There is no crown without a cross. I wish we could get to Easter without going to Good Friday, but history tells us that we have got to go by Good Friday before we get to Easter. That's the long story of freedom, isn't it? Before you get to Canaan, you've got a Red Sea to confront. You have a hardened heart of a Pharaoh to confront. You have the prodigious hilltops of evil in the wilderness to confront. And even when you get up to the promised land, you have giants in the land. The beautiful thing about it is that there are few people who have been over in the land. They have spied enough to say, even though the giants are there, we can possess the land because we got the internal fiber to stand up amid anything that we have to face. The road to freedom is difficult. It's a hard road. It always makes for temporary setbacks. And those people who tell you today that there is more tension in Montgomery than there ever has been are telling you right. Whenever you get out of Egypt, you always confront a little tension. You always confront a little temporary setback. If you don't confront that, then you never get out. You must remember that the tensionless period that we like to think of was the period when the Negro was complacently adjusted to segregation, discrimination, insult, and exploitation. And the period of tension is the period when the Negro has decided to rise up and break a loose from that. And this is the peace that we are seeking, not an old, negative, obnoxious peace which is merely the absence of tension, but a positive, lasting peace, which is the presence of brotherhood and justice, and is never brought about without this temporary period of tension. The road to freedom is difficult, but finally, Ghana tells us that the forces of the universe are on our side of justice. That's what it tells us now. You can interpret Ghana any kind of way you want, but Ghana tells me that the forces of the universe are on our side. That night, when I saw the old flag coming down and the new one coming up, I saw something else. That wasn't just an ephemeral, effervescent event appearing on the stage of history, but it was an event with eternal meaning, for it symbolizes something. That thing symbolized to me that an old order is passing away and a new order is coming into being. An old order of colonialism, of segregation, of discrimination is passing away, and a new order of justice and freedom and goodwill is being born. That's what is said. Somehow the forces of justice stand on the side of the universe so that you can ultimately trample over God's children and profit by it. I want to come back to Montgomery now, but I must stop by London for a moment, for London reminds me of something. I will never forget the day that we went to London. The next day we started moving around this great city, the only city in the world that is almost as large as New York City. Over 8 million people in London. About 8 million, 300,000. New York has about 8,500,000. London larger in area than New York though. Standing in London is an amazing picture, and I never will forget the experience I had. The thoughts that came to my mind as we went to Buckingham Palace, and I looked there at all of Britain, at all of the pomp and circumstance of royalty, and I thought about all of the queens and kings that had passed through here. Look at the beauty of the changing of the guards and all of the guards with their beautiful horses. It's a beautiful sight. Move on from there, go over to Parliament. Move into the House of Lords and the House of Commons. There, with all of the beauty standing up before the Lord, is one of the most beautiful sights in the world. Then, I remember, we went on over to Westminster Abbey, and I thought about several things when we went into this great church, this great cathedral, the center of the Church of England. We walked around and went to the tombs of the kings and queens buried there. Most of the kings and queens of England are buried right there in Westminster Abbey. And I walked around. On the one hand, I enjoyed and appreciated the great Gothic architecture of that massive cathedral. I stood in there in awe thinking about the greatness of God and man's feeble attempt to reach up to God. And I thought something else. I thought about the Church of England. My mind actually went back to Buckingham Palace, and I saw this is the symbol of a dying system. There was a day that the queens and kings of England could boast that the sun never sets on the British Empire, a day when she occupied the greater portion of Australia, a greater portion of Canada. There was a day when she ruled most of China, most of Africa, and all of India. I started thinking about this empire, and I started thinking about the fact that she ruled over India one day. And then Mahatma Gandhi stood there at every hand trying to get the freedom of his people, and they never bowed to it. They decided that they were going to stand up and hold India in humiliation and in colonialism many, many, many years. And I remember we passed by 10 Downing Street. That's the place where the Prime Minister of England lives. And I remember that a few years ago, a man lived there by the name of Winston Churchill. One day he stood before the world and said, "I did not become His Majesty's first minister to preside over the liquidation of the British Empire." And I thought about the fact that a few weeks ago, a man by the name of Anthony Eden lived there, and out of all of his knowledge of the Middle East, he decided to rise up and march his army with the forces of Israel and France into Egypt. And there they confronted their doom because they were revolting against world opinion. Egypt, a little country. Egypt, a country with no military power. They could have easily defeated Egypt, but they realized they were fighting against world opinion.